Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon with Rabbi Rebecca Schatz.
In late November of 2023, I traveled to Israel for 48 hours with the LA Board of Rabbis. Our only full day on the ground was spent in the south, and a major aspect of that journey was to Kfar Aza. Gloves still on the ground, Hamas motorcycles still strewn in the dirt, blood still smeared on the walls, and items from the homes still chaotically thrown about the kibbutz. It was about 6 weeks after October 7th, and the devastation was still raw, uncleaned, and not yet preserved for tour groups. In our bulletproof vests and helmets, we walked through the kibbutz, through a thick, eerie silence. What was most shocking was stepping back into Sukkot, seeing the sukkahs still standing perfectly for the most part, some with decorations still pristinely hung, and others with kids' toys surrounding the entryway, as if everything was just dropped and time now stood still. We stood in a circle listening to a member of the security team, and the silence was broken by an explosion. We were told in the moment that it was the IDF practicing in Israel, but we later found out that it was the sound of a broken ceasefire in Gaza. The silence was scary, but that boom was loud and reminded us of the reality of our current situation. In a way, I wonder if in that moment we were all more frightened because it seemed to be a foreshadowing of what we feared we knew would be a long war ahead. I wrote this sermon as close to Shabbat as possible, with the hopes of knowing more about what might happen with this hostage deal in the next few days. As of this moment when I was writing, the IDF had completed the first phase of their withdrawal from Gaza. We knew the published list of Palestinian male prisoners to be released, and we expect that there will be 48 hostages to be returned, only 20 of whom Israel expects to be alive. Those are just some of the known elements, with many more intricate, challenging, and complicated aspects to this hopeful return, release, and the beginning of healing. On the precipice of this deal, it is fitting that we are at the precipice of our Torah and celebrating Sukkot, a holiday that will forever remind me of my November trip to Israel, a time of Zman Simchatenu, and an experience of coming face to face with fragility, immortality, and the gratitude that comes with stability and security. We don't read the last parsha of our Torah this Shabbat because it's Sukkot. However, I hope in the next few minutes for us to take a look at the Torah reading that we heard today, a bit of a connection to the holiday that we are in, and an ending with a connection to Vezot HaBracha. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai re'eh ata omer elai ha'al et ha'am hazeh ve'ata lo hodatani et asher tishlach ami. Moshe said to Adonai, "See, you, God, say to me, lead this people forward, but you have not made known to me who you, God, will send with me." In the first verse of our Torah reading today, Moshe is questioning his journey because he knows the outcome, but he doesn't know the process. He knows he must lead the people forward, but he is not sure what support he will have nor guidance. Rashbam comments on the following verse that Moshe is asking that God inform the way that people should travel by showing Moshe the way to follow God. As a leader, Moshe knows it's his duty to take the first step, but he's unsure where that step will lead, and he wants God's support. These verses read to me like the feeling that all hostage families have had since their release plan was announced. Hope is palpable, and the return of loved ones is imminent, but the waiting game lends itself to hours and days of deafening silence and cacophonous questions. What if? How? When? Moshe knows to lead the people forward, but he wants God to show up and answer all the remaining questions, to create assurance and make the hope a reality, not just a dream. After a few verses of God creating a more established relationship with Moshe before this journey, Moshe says, I will do this thing that you have asked, for you have truly gained my favor. And then he says, Vayomer har'eni na et kvodecha. He, Moshe, says, so let me behold your presence. Let me behold your honor, God. Now that I trust you, and you have been so good to me as a teacher and a friend and a guide, please let me be in relationship with you. What comes next is known to us. God says that Moshe cannot see his face and pass by him from the cleft of the rock, but I want to focus on the word kavod for a moment. Any word could have been used, as we know, and this word meaning honor, in a different iteration, can also mean heaviness or weight. So what if we read this verse as, now that I have gained your favor and I trust you and I am ready for this journey, please let me hold onto your burden. What we often don't think about is sometimes holding someone's burden is also a kavod, is also an honor. We, a community and people connected to Israel in so many ways, feeling her pain from a distance, fighting for her existence and peace from this country, sharing her culture and art and language, hoping and dreaming and praying for her ability to flourish and remain our homeland, and especially now, experiencing a sense of holding our breath with her before the sighs of relief are exhaled. That is all an honor, and also a weight that has grown heavier and heavier over the past 2 years. Moshe knew what word he was using with God. The honor of being in God's presence and inner circle, and holding the weight of being that close and comfortable. It is heavy, and it is a great honor to be part of this people and to love Israel. We build a sukkah to be our permanent home during these holidays. And how bizarre is it that that permanent home must, according to Jewish law, be flawed? It doesn't have enough walls, there are holes in the ceiling, it should be able to blow over, and it's made from items that are going to wither or rot. A permanent home, made beautiful and accessible and not perfect. And yet the constant image of still standing Sukkot in Kfar Aza stays strong in my mind. They were meant to fall down, and they were still standing after a pogrom. Maybe that's a metaphor for us in these past 2 years. Fragile, swaying in the wind, and yet still standing. Beautiful, hopeful, and ready to house guests, and now to celebrate joy. The image in my mind of Moshe leading the people on this journey is one of trepidation and yet an ounce of confidence in his step, knowing that God is with him. He feels the heaviness of the burden of getting his people to where they need to go and the anxiety of not knowing what is to come along the way. I cannot even imagine what the living hostages and their families are feeling right now. Unable to sleep out of fear and yet very awake, hopeful and excited and filled with joy. Unknowing of the journey ahead of them, but ready to take the heavy step forward, knowing it is leading to a life that can now have a beautiful future. And for those families who know they are receiving coffins of loved ones, this has been the longest aninut anyone should ever have to endure. Aninut is this period between death and burial where the mourner is not obligated to any mitzvot because their mind should be on taking care of their loved one. Metaphorically, they're creating a sukkah of time. It's real and it's permanent, but it is built knowing it will only be temporary. Loved ones will be buried and Shiva will begin far too long after they have passed. The last verse of our Torah says, Ulechol hayad hachazaka ulechol hamorah hagadol, asher asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. And for all the great might and for all the awesome power that Moshe displayed before the eyes of Israel. Rashi's last comment on the Torah is on Einei Kol Yisrael, in the sight of all of Israel. That Moshe shattered the tablets before their eyes and the Holy Blessed One agreed with his judgment. As it says, which you broke. And then Yasher Koach Sheshibarta is the Talmudic midrash, more power to you for shattering them. Rabbi Tali Adler asks, why would the Torah choose to commemorate that moment in its final words? Because according to Rashi and that Talmudic tradition he draws from, that moment which we so often read as a tragedy is in fact a moment that God affirms as an appropriate choice. Every time we finish the Torah, Rabbi Adler teaches, we experience a shattering. The Torah itself, as a physical object, will still be there the next time we come to it, but we will never again be the people we are at this moment. Our concerns, our hopes, our loves and fears will be different. The questions we bring to Torah will be different. The Torah then, in the way it is brought to life through the union of human voice and word, will never exist again as it does now. In its final words on the Torah, Rashi affirms the experience of that shattering, but also offers hope. God approves of what we are about to do. We must shatter the Torah we have created this year, and in order to move forward, we receive the new luchot, the ones that are appropriate to who we are now. We must allow ourselves to shatter what came before, but we still carry remnants of the past year's Torah with us. It does not vanish. Its pieces remain with us side by side with the new Torah that we create now. We are hopefully coming to a new beginning, not only of Torah, but of reality for our people, and especially for the families receiving their loved ones in Israel. It is not just hostages who are coming home. It's also those who have been called into the reserves after bringing home a new baby, or those who needed to move their medical expertise into Gaza rather than at the hospital closer to their partner, and those who can now rest easy because their child will not be called back up to go into a war zone where they may never return home. We are hopefully finally entering back into our homes from the impermanent Sukkot that we have been living in for 2 years. We are hopefully reconnecting the honor in kavod to the heaviness, the kaved we have felt, holding our breaths every time we read the news. We are hopefully rolling our Torahs back to the beginning to focus in on the stories of our existence with eyes of joy and pride and strength. Yes, still full of tears and holding on to our shards, but ready for renewal and to re-roll and start reading the Torah anew, shattering what was and finding the koach to build the future.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.